I don't claim to know about crossing over. I know that that's the title of this video, but I'm purely here to talk about what happened to me and my experiences. About less than a month time after the clock incident that I described, I was watching a house not far from where I lived in Summerlin in a neighboring town called Carpinteria. So, one of the silver linings of Dr. Margol, of the horrible circumstance that was Dr. Margolin's death, was that her entire practice was left hanging. So, I got to serve a lot of those clients, and they just paid me directly because I had the expertise to serve them. Obviously, I was not able to treat, diagnose, right, medicate. But actually, no, medicate I actually can do. That I was more than capable of doing if the medication was already described. But I'm talking about like people who their cats had got their nails trimmed, anal glands expressed. Like, I could do all of that, and I had no problem coming to your home, and people were used to paying, and actually they were more than happy to pay, given the circumstances, the normal prices that the vet paid. So that was a good thing. It kind of gave my business a little boost. I've talked about this in other videos, but I basically fell back into doing my business, my Eric Curry's Pets, which was only meant to be what how I paid my bills for that gap that I was out of school. Again, that's not the context and that's not the focus of this series, but I'm just trying to get, again, you'll see where I'm going with this. But anyway, bottom line is I was watching a house all by myself, and I knew that a spirit was like following me. I'm just gonna say it. I knew it. I could feel it. And I had somewhat of a feeling that it was Dr. Margolin. But the thing is, Summerland is like, it's that kind of place. And I had been going to the spiritualist church. So I can describe it as nothing more than like one of the most, spiritually dynamic times of my life, if you will. The fact that I was going to the church, but then not only was I going to the church, I was staying afterwards for like the community sessions and to really work on my skills. And so I was in community with all of these other more experienced people. I haven't talked much about the apothecary that I was like going to and like establishing a relationship with. Anyway, bottom line is I was watching a house all by myself. And I just remember, like, I don't know, it was like midday. I had like done all the walking, all the cleaning, what have you, that needed to be done at the property. And again, I had the entire place to myself. And I just remember going into the room and it just like collapsing on the bed. And then getting this feeling that like I was not by myself. So what I'm getting ready to describe, I'm just going to be brutally honest. None of this is like politically correct, nor do I claim that this is the proper way of talking to a spirit. This is just what happened to me. So I'm in this room, laying up back on the bed when I like realize that I'm not alone. And I just very brutally say, I was like, okay, who are you? What do you want? And I remember sitting up in the bed and staring at the wall in front of me. The best way that I know how to describe it is that I was kind of looking out. I was kind of looking through the wall at an angle at what can only be described as a vivid, like, weaving pattern that was like metallic rainbow, just like moving like that. And as I was watching this, and again, I wasn't able to see it straight on. It had to be in that way that I described, and I've always needed a blank wall like that, preferably white, but doesn't really have to be. I realized like an image forming through that kind of like weaving, shimmering rainbow, whatever you want to call it, pattern. So if I remember correctly, the first thing that I saw was what I immediately knew. I don't know how I knew this, but what I recognized as a Native American healing person, shaman. I hope I'm using the right term, but you know, I just remember they had like some regalia on them. I think honestly, I don't really, you know what I'm saying? I know what I saw, but as far as like picturing it, you know, I more remember this person's face, and I just remember knowing that it was like a medicine man, right? Honestly, could have been a medicine woman. What I do know is that that's kind of when I realized that it was Dr. Margolin. In my head, I kind of made that connection between her specialty in Chinese herbs and medicine and the shaman, you know, Eastern medicine, non-Western medicine. And then a lion came through, like with the full mane, kind of like flapping like that. Again, I don't know why in my head that's like when I like solidified that it was her, because if we're going by like astrological sign, you know, she's an Aries, it should have been a ram. But for whatever reason, seeing that lion, I was like, oh, now I'm definitely sure. And I just remember literally saying like, what do you want? I wasn't gonna pretend I wanted to talk to her. I wasn't gonna flatter her, for lack of a better term. I know how crazy this all sounds, but let me just say that the fact that it was only me and her there somewhat allowed me a little bit more, I don't know how to just like, I don't know, a little bit more, I guess maybe that would make the average person more scared and maybe draw them back. But I promise you, it only made me braver. It only made me like want to interact with, like, really put an end to this. I'm being brutally honest with you, brutally honest with you. So, swear to God, the next words that I heard, and I couldn't tell you if I heard them in my head or if they were out loud, but I know damn well the message that I got that day, because plain as day, the message that I got was, you have to forgive me. And I'm not even gonna sit here and act like it was, it was like forced, you know what I mean? Like, and on both sides, you know, I promise you, I did eventually come to forgive this woman, but I'm not gonna sit here and act like she did this like nicely, or like, I'm not sure if this is what she needed to cross over. That's just what it was giving, for lack of a better term. This is perhaps the most vivid and realistic experience, mediumship experience that I have ever had in my entire life, what I'm describing right now in this video. And again, I also, before I end the video, I just remember having this thought that it was kind of like a, not a deal with the devil, but I know that there's a term for it. It's like, we don't really like each other, and I'm not going to pretend that I like you, but I'd kind of like some peace. You want to cross over, so yeah, sure. And I'm not saying it wasn't genuine as much as that sounds, because I did realize that, like, I'm not going to give this person any more control. I do have to, in fact, forgive this person. So in that sense, I still stand by the fact that I think it was kind of selfish, but it was forced. And that is my experience. And in the next video, I'll kind of wrap this up, but it's going to connect to another part of my life in a very, very, very interesting way. And again, you'll see how that happens shortly.